Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Winging It F1 podcast. It's still me and Adam. Freddie is going to be back soon, though, from his holidays in the western side of the world. I think he's been to a couple of places. Can't remember which ones. New York and Barbados. There you go. I do know, so I do know which ones. Retract that first comment. Adam,
you just need to say the west side as well, because there's not that many places in the Western Hemisphere.
There's many countries. Yeah, but if you include South America, it's like 12 countries there, probably. So, I don't know. And then you got the Caribbeans, and then North America, all right, there's only 3 countries there, so that's a good point. Well, that's still like a good 2 dozen, isn't it?
Well, I can never remember with Central America, because you've got like some islands that are countries and some that are just like British. Like the Cayman Islands isn't its own country. It's like British. It's like Commonwealth, but still part of Britain kind of thing. So, yeah, this isn't the Winging It Geography podcast, and now you're seeing why. But yeah, I can't. Actually, fun fact. Samoa either gained or lost today. They will have lost today because they used to be
Tuesday.
They're in like the middle of the Pacific, and they used to be on US time because they thought they were going to trade more with US, or they did trade more with US back in the day. But then as like things went on, then they started trading more with Australia and Asia. So they changed to make business easier. Then they changed their time. So they went forward a whole day to become on Australian time, so they moved across the date line.
You said lost a day. I thought you said lost today. That's why I said Tuesday.
No, they didn't.
I thought you meant they like lost a rugby game or something. I thought you said today, not our day. Sorry,
a day. They lost. I think it's like might have been 2000. I think they did it on New Year's, like E/Day, but I can't remember which year. It wasn't that long ago though. Probably while we've been alive. Well, Freddie's been alive, but that doesn't narrow it down much. But yeah.
Fun fact. If you've listened or watched every episode of our podcast, you've lost about 6 days. Yeah, 6 days. If you've listened to every single one, find us on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Of course, you can see my funny reactions to everything Adam says. I always react with my face as well as my mouth.
It's only 6 days worth of stuff.
6 times 24, isn't it? So
yeah, I guess so.
We've done 140 odd episodes, so
Coming
on to the big 150 soon. Huh?
Feels like more than that.
Feels like more. Oh, you try. You're right. You try sitting through 148 episodes consecutively. No way. Yeah. No one can. And if anyone does, I will give them 10 grand. So get listening. Anyway. Enough of that. We can
not enough. Back. Yeah, I've started listening to this podcast, History Daily, and it does something that happened every day. It like talks about an event that happened in history on that day. I don't know. I think they'd be going.
We're losing viewers every time you speak about this.
Honestly, check it out. If people are interested, if people survive my Samoa fact, then you're going to be interested in this. So this for today, it's the failed assassination of Lenin. In 1918, 30th of August, obviously, although this is going up tomorrow. So, listen to it tomorrow and then comment on whatever thing it is tomorrow. It'll probably say at the end of this episode, actually. But yeah, enjoy.
Speaking of Lenin, he had nothing to do with the Dutch Grand Prix, which we're going to be speaking about in a bit. But first, we're going to get on to some, what we usually say is the news section, but there's been no actual news. There's just lots of rumours and reports about drivers for next year and where they're going to go. The latest, almost certain thing, although there's been no statement, is Autosport have reported that Mick Schumacher has cut ties with Ferrari. Does this have any effect on his seat? I don't think so too much, because I think it is down to Haas anyway. But Mick Schumacher first, Adam, before we get on to not everyone else, before we get on to some other drivers. What do we think his future is? Is it Alpine? Is it Haas? Is it AlphaTauri? Is it Williams? Is it not in F1?
It's a difficult one. In July, around the Silverstone weekend, then Steiner said they'd not started properly negotiating the seat, but Schumacher was the only one they'd approached or talked to or had on their shortlist. So. But obviously a lot of water and racing under the bridge since then, even though we're coming not at Monza yet, which has got the most famous F1 bridge on the calendar. But still, yeah, I don't know. I think I would say it's most likely that he's at Haas next year still. I'm not sure I really buy the Alpine stuff. It would just be a bit weird. I'm just kind of not sure where the attraction is there, unless he's like I don't know. He'd be probably third, well, be fourth choice behind Alonso, Piastri, and Gasly at least. So it kind of feels like, if they miss on everyone else, then they'll go for him. So,
So if Gasly goes to AlphaTauri, which you're saying, he's above Schumacher in the pecking order, does that leave a space at AlphaTauri for him?
assume if Gasly goes to Alpine.
Sorry. If Gasly goes to Alpine,
it would do.
And Tsunoda's not safe there either, so it could be,
Bloody hell. Yeah, it's
it's complicated.
I mean, I can see them. I don't know. I can see them bringing in someone like Teo Porcher, or just like Snipe, a bit like Freddie called that they might bring Schumacher into the fold. Maybe doing like a Teo Porcher if they can. And
I think I said Drugovic to AlphaTauri. I think So, and he's still performing very well. He won the. What did he win the feature race on? No, sorry, he came second at Spa in the feature race on Sunday. But still, very good performance still.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I just don't. Again, like if you're going, I still see Tsunoda staying, and then I feel like they'd be more likely to bring someone like that in, because I just don't like if you're looking for someone to partner Max Verstappen, where is like I don't think Schumacher has a higher potential than Gasly or Albon, to be honest, and we've seen how that went already. So yeah, that's. Again, I just don't really see it. So I see Haas being the most likely.
Is he good enough to stay at Haas though? Is he good? Because this season, yes, right. So he's had the crashes, Saudi Arabia, Monaco, not just that. He was miles off Magnussen first, 7 or 8 races. But then since Canada, Silverstone and Austria, I think it was, off memory. He scored in Austria and Silverstone. And then he had that retirement in Canada, but he was very strong in qualifying in the wet. Qualified on the 3rd row, which was very good. So, he showed pure performance there that he could match Magnussen. And I think recently, Haas have now finally been showed up with the development or the lack of development. I think they are the team that have brought the least upgrades this season. And that's why they've recently, it's just been harder and harder for Schumacher to kind of stand out, let's say. But I think from what I've seen, he is matching Magnussen, but he's not really beating him. So is matching Magnussen enough? And, does he need to improve? Because for me, I think Schumacher needs to, find that extra step and beat Magnussen the next 2 or 3 races to secure his seat at Haas. If he has another big mistake, or if he starts to underperform at Zandvoort, Monza, and then into Singapore, that is where I think he could be out of F1, I think.
I mean, we're talking about the team that kept Grosjean and Magnussen going for about 2 seasons too long. I think I said this about Alfa Romeo in the silly season special, that it's not, they were going to keep Mazepin on for this season as well. It's kind of the Haas way is to err on the side of caution and stick with their drivers. So I can see, I think he's shown enough. Like you say, he has had a comeback, and I think they only need to see enough potential for next year, and I think he's shown that. I don't really think he needs to be beating Magnussen week in, week out. That's just my gut feeling, is that they want to, they need to find a reason for him to go, and I'm not sure there really is that. I think if he's equal with Magnussen, then they'll convince themselves that he can stay. That's my read on it. And again, I think once you take out Piastri and Gasly off the table, then you're looking at Ricciardo, maybe someone like Porcher or Drugovic coming in. So I think there's not enough of a reason to flip. I quite like it I'd like Schumacher. He seems like a nice guy, but it would be interesting if they did bring in one of those. But unless you're looking at a really high profile or high potential driver, I'm not really sure they'll go for it personally.
Well, the big favourite, Autosport, and I think a couple of other big publications are reported. Can't remember who, so I'm not going to name them, but they are big sites. Is Antonio Antonio Giovinazzi, who has got the practice runs at Monza and USA for Haas. He is the big favourite at the moment. Why? Not too sure, because we kind of know how good or bad he is depending on how you rate him. Didn't do too well in Formula E, but I think what it is, the only thing I can think is Haas looking for experience and someone who's cheaper than Ricciardo, because that's why they had Magnussen and Grosjean for so long, because they were so experienced. Maybe they want a similar thing with Magnussen and Giovinazzi, two experienced drivers, and for that, a similar scenario, whereas Schumacher is still quite young and they potentially don't want to go down that route. But at the moment, he is the favourite. So,
Does he have that much more experience than Schumacher, though?
So 2017 did 2 races, then 2019, 2020. So he's done three and a bit seasons.
Yeah. Schumacher's done 2. At the end of next season, he'll have done 3 if they keep him. I don't really...
I don't know. But
yeah,
for some reason,
I know.
He is the big thing. I mean, I'm not sure either. Certainly, I wouldn't go for it, but those are the rumours right now.
Unless it's Ferrari kind of putting their weight around, but I don't really see what they
have to say that it's up to them. And this is what I mean, because with this news came out about him doing the practice sessions, it doesn't count towards the mandatory young driver sessions, which the teams have to do. This is just Haas putting Giovinazzi in because they want to. That's why I thought there's got to be something going on here. And I know at the time we said, there's a 1% chance. But I know in the back of my head, I was thinking, it was just felt a bit strange. And it does increasingly look like, especially if Schumacher does underperform, I can see Giovinazzi taking a seat.
It'd just be it'd just be so... It'd be so depressing. He just wasn't... Like you said, we know exactly what we've got. I think Schumacher is a better driver than Antonio Giovinazzi, and we both said there's reservations about Schumacher, so I think that's saying a lot. So, yeah, I don't know. I still don't see it. But equally, they called Alonso to Aston. I didn't see that either. So, but it's just I think I don't want to believe in it. I think that is because
we always talk like before the podcast. He didn't even mention it or bring it. So
it's just Giovinazzi. Seems a great guy, Italian Jesus, whatever. But he's not a future F1 race winner. He's not probably a future F1 podium sitter. So it's not. Yeah, I just don't see it at all. But yeah, I think I still think Schumacher. I'm still about. I'd say 75%. I think Schumacher will be in the 75-80%. I think Schumacher will be at Haas next season.
Okay. Alpine, Gasly to Alpine. Do you think that will happen? Because it is increasingly looking like, I think Helmut Marko said over the weekend that Red Bull are prepared to let him go as well. And I'm sure Gasly, we know after his little stint at Red Bull in 2019, it ended on bad terms. The team, like the actual engineers and the crew, didn't really like him as well, so they didn't really get on. It looks like he's never going to go back to Red Bull. So surely, if Alpine the seat is available, and by the way, the Oscar Piastri contract thing is still ongoing as we're recording, so this is all speculation. If the seat is available at Alpine, which it looks like it will be to replace Alonso, is Gasly going to go there? Do you think?
I really think he should. The problem is I've been stung by this for the last 2 seasons. Is I've said Gasly should leave Red Bull. I can't remember where I said he should go last season. I think the season before I said he should go to Alpine before Alonso got announced. But yeah. So the only thing is I've predicted that twice and it's not happened. But the logic's still there. It seems to make so much sense with Red Bull. They get the AlphaTauri seat freed up. He's not the future there, and how much do Red Bull well, obviously AlphaTauri care, but how much do Red Bull really care about, that team being really competitive versus
Plus,
being
they'll get some money because Alpine would have to buy him out of his contract because Gasly signed a new contract to stay at AlphaTauri next year. So Red Bull will get some money from that.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I said when we were talking about Gasly's contract when it was announced, is that and money can solve things and money can solve contracts and get people out of contracts. So it was always on the cards, and I really think it should happen. I know there's history between Ocon and Gasly, and they just don't talk to each other now from French, either karting or F4.
Karting.
So I know that's there, but come on, you're
adults. They've grown up.
They're both in their mid-20s. Yeah,
exactly. I think no matter how bad it was, these F1 drivers, these sports people, they've got to the level they are because they have the right mindset. So I think they can, resolve whatever went on, let's say, and we don't know how bad it was, but I think they can resolve it. They can get on.
It'd be such an Alpine thing to have that combustible lineup as well. I'd quite like that.
It's just Ocon hasn't, Perez didn't really like him. Alonso, in Hungary we saw Ocon was very aggressive against him. He has got a bit of a thing, let's say. Obviously, we know Verstappen doesn't get on well with Ocon. It does seem a lot of the grid doesn't get on with him. So it's nothing, yes, the Gasly relationship is probably the worst, but it's nothing, completely new. There is something there, clash of personalities or whatever. But I think you're right, we're talking about something that was 10, 15 years ago. Yeah. So they can move on.
Why doesn't it make sense? Because you get a proven midfield operator, a race winner, going to a team that is still looking like that, someone in their mid-20s, so they've still got plenty of time left in their careers, probably still coming into their maybe perfect prime. Gasly has maybe dropped off. He's not, I think he's improved every season he's been at Toro Rosso AlphaTauri until now. This is the first season where it's been a bit of a plateau or maybe even a bit of a dip. So I think, he can't stay there forever. And I think this is maybe a good time to get out of that and take on a new challenge. It's a French team. Obviously, there's that link, although maybe I've overblown that. In the past, I don't think they kind of lie awake at night trying to get two French drivers into that team. But, it's another link. So, if I hadn't been stung twice by saying this in the last 2 years, then I'd be absolutely on it. I still just think it makes so much sense. I don't really see why they wouldn't go for it unless they get Piastri, unless they win the contract recognition board with Piastri. But it just seems to make so much sense. So that's my take.
Ricciardo latest, I've seen him being linked with Alpine, Williams, and Haas since we last spoke about it last week. So honestly, just take your pick if you're listening or watching this. No, for what I'll say for all of this is, a lot is up in the air, and it's going to depend on what happens on one seat, and then the rest will follow. And I don't think we're going to find out at least till October. That's my thing. I don't think we'll hear anything. I might be wrong, but I don't think we'll hear anything in September, or at least not till towards the very end. But Ricciardo latest, any of your thoughts on it changed, Adam, or still not sure?
I still feel pretty good about my Ricciardo to Williams prediction.
Okay.
I just think the more
to take Latifi's seat,
yeah. I just think the more rumours that come out about the Alpine seat, the less likely it is that he's going there. I think there wouldn't maybe be. I know a lot of it's hot air and whatever, but I just don't think there's no smoke without fire, and I don't think there'd be this level of linkage going on between Schumacher and Gasly and whoever if they were really set on Ricciardo. So to me, Haas is quite an interesting one.
I can see that. If they've got the money, and a bit more money, Ricciardo takes a bit of a pay cut and the meet in the middle. I can see that.
I can see Gene Haas pushing it as well. So, I think that, if I was Ricciardo, they're both kind of not amazing options, but if I was Ricciardo, I'd probably pick Haas over Williams. But I don't really know. No, sorry. I
was going to say, just for balance, Jos Capito did say to Sky Sports F1 on Friday it was that Williams want to keep their current lineup of Latifi and Albon. So that's the latest official stuff going from there. I know, and the worst thing is he said he's happy with Latifi's improvements, but Latifi hasn't improved. If anything, Latifi has downgraded a bit. Sorry, dropped off this year. Last year, yeah, you can make a case for him that he should stay on the grid, and he probably earned this seat because he was quite close to Russell, even beat him a few times. But this year, it's been pretty bad. But yeah, that's the latest going from Williams there. For me, I think either one of Ricciardo or Schumacher will not be on the grid. It's just a matter of which one for me.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah,
that's the only thing I'm 90% sure about at the moment. Everything else, I honestly couldn't. And you know me, I love to have my opinion on things, but I honestly have no idea which way it could go with the AlphaTauri seats, with the Alpine seat, with the Haas Williams seat. So
yeah. Problem is, the more I talk about each thing, then I talk myself into believing it. So I said I was 75-80% sure Schumacher would be at Haas, but then talking about Ricciardo, that seems to make so much sense. And then, yeah, I'm just a bit, I'm kind of a bit, I don't know, all at sea with it. But, oh man, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tough one. The last things is that if Gasly does leave, or even if AlphaTauri want to replace Tsunoda, Red Bull are looking at Colton Herta, the IndyCar driver. They're looking to sign him. But I think, like we mentioned 5-10 minutes ago, they could easily, sign Drugovic or something from F2, or they could even nick Logan Sargent or do something wild like that. But Herta is towards the top of the list of candidates of potentially replacing either Tsunoda or replacing Gasly, depending on how the seats are open. So, yeah, is there any thoughts on that, Adam?
No, I was going to say I don't think Red Bull would replace both drivers at once, but no, they would. They would absolutely replace both drivers at once. So, yeah, I don't think they'll probably give too much thought to that. Again,
they're in the best position, really. They're just watching everything that happens, and they've got the money to go and sign someone from IndyCar or someone from a current F1 driver or an F2 driver. So they must be laughing with what they've got.
And so many drivers would want to be there.
Yeah.
It's apart from Ricciardo and Gasly, I think every other driver should want to be at AlphaTauri because it's a really solid setup. So, yeah, it's again that with people, someone like Herta or Ricciardo, where it's just absolute shotgun blasts everywhere of where they could be, then I'm not really buying into any one thing in particular. It's more, I mean, I know Schumacher's been, had a few things come out, but it seems it's Alpine, Haas or nothing. And with Gasly, it seems like it's Alpine or AlphaTauri. I don't think they get rid of Gasly if he doesn't want to leave personally. But yeah, with Herta and Ricciardo, it just seems like anyone with a blog is linking him somewhere. So
yeah. I think the last thing I'll say on this silly season to anyone who is listening or watching, having got a very good idea of what F1 media is like, there is a lot of shit around. So honestly, just keep an eye on Autosport, keep an eye on the race, those
keep
kind
an eye
of
on
big
us
sites.
and Total Motorsport.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, even though I work for Eurosport and Total Motorsport, honestly, the two sites I just mentioned there, those are the sites to be looking out for. They will have the inside knowledge and the know-how, and they'll know the people rather than sites, let's say, and no disrespect to them, rather than people who don't have those contacts, let's say. So if you do want to find out the true, genuine information, read and listen to those sites rather than other websites. That'll be the only thing I'd say. But like I said, this is all going to change again this time next week, probably. Adam, you got one last thing to say before we talk about Zandvoort?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, keep an eye on this podcast feed as well, because as soon as something happens, we will be doing an emergency podcast because it's so much fun. But just on a general point, man, I love it. I know there's so much going on, but it's so much fun. It just feels like there are so many so many ambiguities and so many unknowns, even just from a month ago that we thought we knew, and it's so good.
Even
I
last
love
week.
it. Yeah, because I mean, last season there wasn't too much going on from memory. It was the Alfa Romeo where it kind of felt like there was a prevailing wind on that, and this season it's just like, man, it's so much going on. I love it.
Yeah, it's always making up for the track action in a way. Like last year was the peak in terms of the championship. For me, best ever season will never ever be beaten. This silly season is going to be pretty hard to beat as well. We've not even mentioned the Piastri thing again because we're just waiting on that, and we don't want to get involved in a legal situation there. So yeah, we'll leave that to one side and come back to it when we do hear some news. Let's talk about the racing though, because we got the second Grand Prix of the triple header. It's Zandvoort first, the second race since it's come back onto the calendar last year, and well, it was a brilliant atmosphere, wasn't it, Adam? Like with all I know it's very one-sided, obviously, but it feels like F1 needs those kind of atmospheres in those races where you get so much support for one driver. It just created something brilliant, didn't it?
Yeah, like they've got their own mini stadium section just before you go onto the curve that leads onto the home straight again. It just works so well. I think we have seen a lot of stories more this season than last season about Verstappen fans in particular boiling over and some more unsavoury sides to that. But if they can keep it between, on the side of fun rather than, uncomfortable, then it is really, that's what draws people to F1, is seeing stuff like that and being a part of that. So yeah, fingers crossed there are no negative headlines about it, because when you see, I know I was looking through for again the thumbnail for this episode, when you see some of the pictures from last season, it's just so it's just such a spectacle, and that's what I really love about F1 more than kind of why I struggle to warm to maybe some of the motorsports, is because it's just got that level of spectacle and atmosphere that other motorsports don't have outside of the really big ticket events. So yeah, hopefully it's going to be a fantastic weekend for all fans, and particularly Verstappen fans having a good time.
Yeah, and the track as well, I absolutely love it. Yes, it's very difficult to overtake, but it is proper old school. I'm so glad F1 brought a proper old school track back. I mean, the banked corners, turn one's a bit banked, and then you got the very banked turn 4, because there's a little turn 2 free shimmy, and then the super fast middle sector going through that, and the final corner, which they're going to trial DRS in free practice 1 through there. Hopefully we'll have it in the race to have a bit more overtaking, because that'll be quite good, because it does, the straights are quite short there. But yeah, qualifying there might be a bit of rain as well this weekend, so if the rain's kind of dripping down the bankings and there's like rivers, that'll be even more challenging. So yeah, I think it is going to be a spectacle. Quickly on the title race, Adam, I can't remember if we talked about this at Spa, but we both think it's game over, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, firstly on Zandvoort, I completely echo your thoughts on that. It's a fantastic. It's one on the F1 game. Then it's one that I just really enjoy driving, because it's such a challenge, but so enjoyable at the same time. And yeah, it's already re-establishing itself as a classic on the calendar with the title race. I know we talked about Ferrari strategy last episode, but I was thinking, actually, I do back the call, having thought about it some more, because you're in a better position than you have been for the last at least 2 seasons. Just go for it. Like, it's not, I think Ferrari needs to be going for all of these things. And yes, they need to execute, and yes, they need to run the right speed in the pit lane and, make those calls. But I do think there is still that chance. And I know it's a huge gap. I know it's a 100-point gap, but there's always that chance. And they need to keep trying for these options, and whether it's for 2 points or 20 points, I think if they can just keep going and keep giving it their best effort and hope something comes around, I do really want to see that. Even though I think it is over, I do really want to keep seeing Ferrari going for it and taking risks to try and draw it back in any way they can.
I agree with that, actually. That's why I wasn't that harsh. I didn't have much to say after the race when we brought it up on Sunday, which you should go back and watch, by the way, before the Dutch Grand Prix. That's why I didn't really go on a big rant like I did in France or after Silverstone or after Monaco and Hungary. Just those 4 races there. But yeah, and the bigger mistake was Leclerc speeding in the pit lane. That was the bigger mistake, really, because if he didn't do that, then he would have got 5th rather than 6th. So that's the bigger mistake. So yeah, that's my take on that, really.
Yeah,
so,
I think it's easy to get drawn into, and I did. I kind of went in a bit more harshly on them post race, and there's the emotion, and we've seen it so many times this season. But yeah, actually, you've got to go for that. Like you have to try and get every point and back yourself to execute. Because if you can't back yourself to execute something like that, what you know, why are you turning up every weekend? So yeah, I think they just have to keep going for it, because they're relying on Red Bull mistakes, and Red Bull and Verstappen don't make many mistakes, and we've seen that over the past 2 seasons. So I think it's pretty unlikely that we will get a real title race, to be honest. But yeah, it's I applaud Ferrari for keep going for it, and yeah, keep plugging away, and fingers crossed something can come up. But
absolutely, I mean, they went for it with Sainz on. I mean, people won't have noticed this, but they pitted Sainz before the Red Bull to prevent the Red Bulls from undercutting him. That was aggressive. To be in the lead and pit first. I always think that's an aggressive strategy play. And that was absolutely the right thing to do. So the small things like that, for me, stand out. So yeah, we'll have to see how they do this weekend. But they're gonna have to be much more competitive, aren't they, Adam? Because the gap at Spa was huge from Red Bull and Verstappen to the rest of the field. But I do feel it was a one-off. I feel a combination of the track, Verstappen saying that he felt good with the car straight away, which is quite, well, I'd say it's uncommon. It's not often that happens where a driver feels good with the car straight away. Normally they've got a bit of understeer here, or just sliding in slow speed corners, that kind of thing, and or they're just lacking pure downforce. But it just sounds like Verstappen was happy immediately. So that might not happen this weekend. I think also Verstappen's brand new engine as well. Normally, when you put a new power unit into the car, the first race or first couple of races, you really feel the kind of newness or freshness of it. So I think that exacerbated things a bit, and the track layout, of course, I think it just suited out Red Bull's aerodynamic, efficient car. Whereas this weekend, with the lack of straights, I'm quite sure Ferrari and Mercedes will be a lot closer. Whether they'll have enough to beat them, not too sure, but I think they'll be closer, especially Mercedes, actually, because they were in qualifying, at least they were nowhere. What are your thoughts this weekend, Adam, on what we're going to see at the front?
Pretty similar, to be fair. I do think Ferrari will be a lot more competitive, or maybe Red Bull will be a bit less competitive. Is maybe a better way of putting it. Mattia Binotto seems, I guess he's got to seem upbeat, but he did seem, optimistic that there would be a chance. Although he also seemed optimistic there was a chance for Monza, so we don't know. But that's to come in a week. I think, I think Leclerc will take pole. Okay. I think in the race, man, because the problem is, I feel like Ferrari needs.
If he's on pole, then he's got track position on the track on one of the toughest tracks to overtake at. So
yeah, the problem is, I feel like Ferrari, to cover up for potential ineptitude, then they need to be so much quicker than Red Bull to make it not a competition. Because I think if they're a tenth or two ahead of Red Bull, that just equalizes Red Bull's kind of efficiency as a team and as a unit. So there's that. But yeah, I feel optimistic for them. I think they'll be pretty evenly matched. I think it'll, to be honest, just come down to strategy, and
I hope so.
Yeah, I guess the other thing is whether Sainz and Perez can get involved. So I back Sainz to be able to get into that fight a bit more than Perez, just judging on how the last few races, particularly the Belgian Grand Prix, have gone. So I think if Sainz can qualify third, then that will be a good position for them. So I feel pretty optimistic for Ferrari. I think if you were looking at this triple header, then this is probably the one that you target, despite Monza being the home race and all of that.
No, you're absolutely right. This track layout suits them far better than Monza. People will have to forget, or Ferrari will have to forget that Monza is their home race because it won't do anything when the track's full of straights. Basically, the Red Bull have better straight line speed. But I think what I want to see most this weekend is a proper fight between Ferrari and Red Bull, Leclerc and Verstappen at the front, because we haven't had one since, we're talking about Miami, and that was at the start of May, and we're at the end of August. It's going to be September when the weekend's happening, because Hungary, just got the strategy wrong with hard tyres, so we didn't really see a race-long scrap there. France, Leclerc crashed. Austria, Verstappen wasn't competitive. Silverstone, Verstappen got the piece of debris stuck in his car, so went backwards after lap 12. Canada, Leclerc started at the back. Azerbaijan, the Ferrari's engines blew up. Monaco, strategy with Leclerc. Spain, Leclerc's engine blew up. So we're talking all the way back to Miami for the last race-long scrap between Ferrari and Red Bull, which is absolutely crazy considering like last year it was pretty much every race where we had Mercedes and Red Bull, Hamilton and Verstappen going head to head, and that's what I loved about it. And that is the big missing ingredient this year. Forget about the mistakes, forget about strategy, blunders and that kind of thing. I want to see a pure race-long scrap, because it's been far too long since we've seen one. And that, for me, this year, F1 2022, that is the thing that's been missing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's interesting that you didn't throw Mercedes into that mix as well. Yeah. But yeah, Leclerc's beaten Verstappen twice since the European leg started. I think that tells you all you need to know, to be honest.
So since Spain?
Since Imola.
Okay, right, yeah.
Inclusive,
they got Miami and Canada and Baku, haven't they? And they're not Europe, but I get the point.
Yeah.
Since Imola. Okay, yeah. Mercedes, quickly, do you think again? I think like Ferrari, this is going to be the best track. I think for me, this is Mercedes' last chance to win on pure pace. I think for them to win, and I know before the summer break I was very optimistic about them, but for them to win on pure pace, I don't think they can win any of the remaining races. I think they can win one by luck or chaos, because there's always going to be a chaotic race, further down the line, or if there's wet weather perhaps. But I think on pure dry pace, this is Mercedes' last chance, I think.
Yeah, I'd maybe throw Japan in there as the only other one that's a contender.
Think about some of the straight still, Japan.
Yeah, but Silverstone Verstappen wasn't in the fight, so yeah. Well, I'd still throw it as in a contender, but yeah, like Zandvoort is I'd say Zandvoort's clear as the kind of favourite one to win a race. Yeah, it's going to be a big one. I'm not that optimistic for them, to be honest, but I still, I think they're more likely to win by craziness happening than by pure pace, to be honest. But yeah, if they're targeting a weekend, then this is the one to do it.
Yeah, there is a bit of rain forecast for Sunday, but we're still 4 or 5 days away. So Mercedes will be hoping for that. I mean, I think they'll be hoping for warmer weather as well. I think it's going to be 24, 23 degrees. Mercedes, for me, one of the other weaknesses as well as straight line speed is tyre temperature. They just cannot generate it if it is cold. I mean, that's what we saw at Spa with the slow out laps, and then in qualifying, they're just nowhere. Whereas in the race, they have pretty good tyre wear. That's why George Russell was coming back towards sides, because Ferrari's tyre wear wasn't that good. Mercedes was, so that's why he was coming back towards sides towards the end. So it's going to be tricky. It is going to be tricky. I really would love to see how to continue his streak of winning a race in every single season, but it does feel after Zandvoort it's going to be tough. And I also read, because of the damage that he's took from his big hit with Alonso, he's going to have to take a grid penalty, because I think the engine might be damaged. That's why he got told to stop suddenly rather than crawling round. But he was already crawling round for 4 or 5 kilometers anyway. so he's going to have to take a grid penalty at some point, I think, as well. Yeah, that's not very optimistic, is it at all? But there's, yeah, who knows?
At a track like Zandvoort, like people can get stuck, or there is more of that chance happening. That's the only thing I'll say. That we're being pretty pessimistic, and I think after Belgium, then it's hard not to be. But I think the two things to kind of cross fingers for are, it just throw a bit of a spanner in the works, making it harder to get past there. And also, I'd imagine Ferrari especially will be looking for a really big response, because they need to give their fans some reason to be cheerful before the home race at least. So yeah, that's my only two possible notes. But you're right, it's looking, Verstappen's just looking so good, Red Bull are looking so good, so we shall see.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only other thing to look out for this weekend is how different the pecking order in the midfield is compared to Spa, because we've had the new technical directive. We'll get another track to see, if Haas have dropped back, for example, which it looks like they have, and if Alpine can keep up the competitiveness and that kind of thing. I don't think there's any drivers for me who will particularly stand out, or any teams. I think it is just going to come down to fine margins. Is that the same case with you, Adam, for the midfield?
Yeah, I think I kind of have maybe some faith for Alpine, and particularly Alonso. I just think for so long of the season, they've been mired in this kind of clash with McLaren that they should have been clear of them long ago, but they did get a very good result at Belgium, and they did decent at Spa as well. So same track, but I think I reckon I still think they'll be the one to beat for me.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Alpine are a solid fourth team. I think they have been at pretty much every race. I think they're almost in their own. I mean, they're not near the front, but I think they're at the very front of the midfield, and I don't think I think they've just got an edge over everyone else. I think everyone else is kind of going up and down a bit, and Alpine are pretty constant this season. That's how I see it. I think the car's quite versatile. And Alonso last year at Zandvoort was very, very good as well. He was the first driver to find the outside line at turn 4, which I love, by the way. How to go around the outside there. Yeah. But yeah. Yeah, shall we make some quick predictions then, which we never come back to, but we do anyway, just for the love of it.
Yes.
Yeah, Poland winner, Adam.
Well, I've already said Leclerc for pole position, so I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to say him for the winner as well, because, please, it's. I hope. I hope so. I want to see some action going on. So yeah, I'm going to go Leclerc. And then everything's going to be mental hyping up to Monza as well. So that'll be fun to watch from the sidelines. So yeah, I'm going to go Leclerc winner, Verstappen second place, and Fernando Alonso third, because I'm feeling it.
Because of the rain and Alpine, yeah. I'm going to go Verstappen, Verstappen win. I think he's too good. I think he's just... I think he's too good. I think the car would be too good. I think they'll have a 10th or 2 on Ferrari as well. And that'll be enough. And home track, we saw how if he could handle the pressure last year in such an intense title fight, then this year will be a bit easier. Yes, there's still going to be pressure and all the media commitments, but he's done it once, so he can do it twice. And that's how I see it, really. So yeah, that is today's podcast. We'll hopefully be back to review the Zandvoort race at the Dutch Grand Prix. My thanks to Adam as usual. My thanks to you for listening. Go and find us on Twitter at Adam and Dickinson01, and Freddie, when he's back, for at FredCoates1999. You can find our tweets there, because that's what Twitter is for. Great. So yeah, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye. Nothing. Not a goodbye.
No, nothing. No. Sometimes I don't wave bye. Yeah. In fact, quite often I don't wave. I don't wave bye or say bye. Yeah.
Well, you've said it about 3 or 4 times there. So, Stike.